what is the offering of the product, and then we'll have some time left towards the end to answer any questions that all of you may have. So with that, I'll first introduce Ramesh to all of us here. So Ramesh Subramanian, he leads partner relations at Zoho Expense. Before joining Zoho, Ramesh was an associate trainer working with students who pursued higher education and entry-level recruits in organizations across industry and sectors. At Zoho, Ramesh specializes in training and onboarding partners for Zoho Expense and has had a first-hand experience providing solutions to customers and their challenging requirements. With these few words, I'll request Ramesh to now take it ahead and share more about the product with all our participants who joined in. Over to you, Ramesh.
Sure. Thank you so much for that intro, Ishan. So, yeah, hi everyone. This is Ramesh, and I lead the partner relations for Zoho Expense. So today in this session, we will be looking at Zoho Expense. So at first, we'll start by looking at the challenges which are faced by businesses in terms of managing employee expenses, and then we'll eventually come to find out how Zoho Expense can meet all those challenges, or how Zoho Expense helps you, overcome those challenges. So as a broad spectrum, Zoho Expense is a GST compliant online expense management solution, which will help you automate your expense reporting process, right from creating expenses to getting them approved, and then completing the reimbursement process. So all of these can be done within Zoho Expense itself. So in a nutshell, just a moment. So in a nutshell, so Zoho Expense serves almost 25 plus industries, and we are present. We have a market presence in over 150 plus countries, and it's been almost over 5 years since we started Zoho Expense. It's been 6 years actually, including this year, and we have 8 different country-specific editions and multiple languages which are supported for receipts and for expenses as well. So with that, we'll get into the agenda of today's session. So we'll first have a look at the importance of travel and expense management, why travel and expense management is important. And so if you take a look at this, a recent survey conducted that, the travel expense management, encompasses of around 8 to 12% of, an average organization's total budget. So which means, it's 8 to 12 percentage of the total budget. So if it's going to be a large organization, you can imagine the amount of money which is being spent on managing the travel and expenses within an organization. So that's going to be a huge amount, for travel and expense alone. And this particular amount is which is spent on the corporate travel is set to soar up to $1.7 trillion by the end of 2022, which is going to be which is a really huge number which we are talking about here, just to manage travel and expense management. Now, why does this why does this much amount of money, why this much amount of money is being spent on travel and expense management? So if we dig deep and find out what is the reason. The reason would be simply nothing but the current scenario of the expense reporting process. So the current scenario of expense reporting process in any organization, if you take it up, any organization that has employees who travel for business purposes. So majorly they use spreadsheets for recording expenses, so or for getting their travel request approved. So let's say if an employee is going to travel to Dubai from India for a business travel, so they would have to basically take a spreadsheet and then fill out all the fields and forms and everything, and then they have to manually enter all these details and then share it with their admin team or approvers who would be processing them. And then in some organizations, they use forms such as, online forms such as Google Forms, or, any kind of form wherein people can basically fill out the details within those forms and then, have them submitted to their employees. And the third tool which they use is mails for getting approval. So once these spreadsheets or forms are filled in, they basically send them over in an email to the approver or to the team who approves it, and that team would have to manually have a look at the spreadsheets, manually go through all these details, and then finally approve their the mails. approve their requests. So the problem with this is that, as you know, it's a manual process and it takes a lot of time. So in case of sharing it with the sharing it via emails, it makes it really difficult for the end user. They'll not have any idea on when their expense reports are going to get approved, when it is going to get reimbursed, or was it even submitted properly or not. So that's a difficulty which the end user will have. And on the other hand, from a finance team's perspective or from an accountant's perspective, they would have a pile of receipts sitting in front of them, or they would have a pile of spreadsheets sitting in front of them, which they'd have to review and then approve or reject. So that's going to be an even more headache for the for the accountant side when we take a look at that. And this kind of a scenario of expense reporting will definitely have a lot of challenges. So some of these challenges would be missing of receipts. So from an employee's perspective, they would definitely miss receipts. So as an employee, we ourselves might have missed a lot of receipts when we get reimbursements. So that's a thing which will which would have happened at least once for every one of us. So receipt missing is something which will be really difficult, because the accountant team or the finance team who are approving this expense report would need the hard copy of the receipt definitely to see. Otherwise they'll not be able to approve the expense report, and the reimbursement will be eventually denied. So that's a difficulty. And from an accountant team or from the finance team, the difficulty is going to be in terms of manually verifying the submitted expenses. So whatever employee expenses that were submitted, it would be it would have to be manually verified. And in case of duplicates, so there might be cases where the employees might tend to become super smart or over smart, and they might try to submit the same expense more than once and try to get reimbursements. So in those cases, finding out or nagging those duplicates out would be a difficult job, or finding out if there is a fraudulent activity that has happened or not, that will be difficult. And also it will be difficult for them to understand what exact policy a particular employee follows, or what exact rule a particular employee follows. So every single time the accountant or the finance team would have to go back and have a look at the travel guide or the guide that they have for reimbursements, and then check what policy this user comes under, and then finally process the reimbursements. And like I said, the finance team would definitely face this issue of having a huge pile of receipts in front of them, and they would not it would be really difficult for for a human to manually process all those receipts or hard copies of the expenses and then finally approve them. So that's a difficulty. And in case if your organization involves a travel desk team, wherein they book online travel tickets for the businesses. So let's say if someone travels from Mumbai to Dubai, so in that case the travel tickets would be arranged by a travel desk team. So what difficulty they would face is they would have a lack of communication between the travelers. They would not know they would not have a visibility on how exactly the tickets need to be booked and so on. So that's the kind of difficulty that they would have. And from a corporate or from a business owner's perspective, the owner of the organization will not have a clear visibility on the spend or the travel data. So what exact how much was exactly spent on expenses, or how much was exactly spent on travel, that visibility will not be available for a business owner, in terms of if you manually do expense reporting process. So that's basically where Zoho Expense plays its part, and it would a Zoho Expense is going to come into the play, and the application will help you overcome these challenges. So with Zoho Expense in place, generally we split the travel and expense stages into three different stages. So we can call it before the trip, during the trip, and after the trip. So basically pre-trip, on-trip, and post-trip. So before the trip, so let's say let's consider a scenario where a traveler travels from Mumbai to Dubai for 5 days of business travel. So the first thing they would have to do is they'd have to raise a travel request. and that can be done using our application. So the travel request can be raised within the application itself, and then it can be sent over to the travel booking team or to let's say his or her manager first for approval. So once that trip request is approved, if that traveler requires some money or some advance to be spent or to be used during the business travel for expenses, then they can request for an advance, which can be done again inside the application itself. Now, once he requests this and once these requests are approved, the travel booking will be made by the travel team. So the travel team would basically make the travel bookings based on whatever in travel request that the employee has submitted within the application. And once the booking is done, the employee, let's say he starts traveling. So now he's on the travel. He's in Dubai. Now he will obviously record, incur expenses. So he would need to store these incurred expenses somewhere. So whatever expenses that he incurs on a daily basis for those 5 days, he needs to store those receipts somewhere in order to get reimbursements or in order to basically reconcile them. So those receipts can be stored within the application. So using our OCR functionality, the receipts can be automatically uploaded, and the receipt information will be captured and recorded as an expense entry as well. We will look at how that would happen in a while. And yeah, so apart from storing these receipts, so if he, if during the travel or during the trip, during those 5 days, if he has already exhausted his given budget amount or advance amount, he can request for an additional advance if required, if the company permits it. And okay, so that's completed. So he stores all the receipts and the trip is complete. He's coming back from the trip. Now, after the trip is over, now he needs to compile all these receipts that he has uploaded into an expense report. And then that expense report will be submitted for approval within the application. And then, an approval workflow will be applied on the report. So whatever, expense report the person has submitted, the approval workflow will be applied. And then once it is approved, finally, the company will be processing the reimbursements to the employee. So all these three stages of travel and expense that we just now spoke about can be handled without any problem inside a Zoho Expense application itself. So which is basically what we would be looking at right now. And so apart from these options, Zoho Expense, as I said, the expense automation process is completely available within the application. So right from uploading your receipts into the application. So let's say the employee incurs a meal expense with a customer, or they take out a customer on a business lunch. Then once they incur the expense, they can just simply capture the receipt using our mobile applications and then upload them into the application. So our unique auto scan process will automatically scan the receipt for the major details like the merchant name, the expense amount, currency, the category, etc. And it would automatically record the receipt as an expense. So as you see on the screenshot over here, so you need to basically upload your receipt into the mobile app, and that gets scanned and recorded as an expense automatically like this. So the date, amount, the merchant name, and the currency will be automatically fetched and recorded as an expense entry. And on the other hand, if the organization has business credit cards or corporate credit cards, then in that case they can also link their credit cards via one of these service providers. So if the corporate card service provider is either Visa or MasterCard or American Express, then we will be able to set a direct integration with them, wherein the feeds or the transactions the employee incurs using the card will be automatically fetched into Zoho Expense from these service providers. So if the service provider is Visa, then the transaction will be fetched directly from Visa to Zoho Expense, and those transactions can then be automatically recorded as expense entries. And if you're using any ride sharing applications like Uber for Business or Ola for Business, then we can also integrate with Uber for Business and Ola to directly bring in the business ride receipts into Zoho Expense as expenses. So whenever you take a ride with Uber or whenever you take a ride with Ola, the receipt for that ride will be automatically uploaded to Zoho Expense as an expense entry. So that way it reduces the work of the user in terms of manually recording their expense. So all the expenses can be automatically recorded with very few minimal steps from the user end. And So this is about the user's end, and from the from an admin perspective or from the finance team's perspective. So what you would be able to do is you would be able to easily find out what are the policy violations that the expense report of a user has. So if a user tries to submit a duplicate expense. So let's say if they have already submitted an expense and they got reimbursement for it, and if they are trying to submit the same expense again, then the application will automatically flag it as a duplicate, like the one that you see here. So whenever there are more than one expenses which have the same expense date, amount, and currency, then all those expenses will be flagged as duplicate by the application. So in that case, it will be shown as a warning violation to the end user as well as the approver user who's approving or reviewing these expense reports. So that's how it would work. And apart from the duplicate detection functionality, so you can also have other specific rules or violations being applied on your on the user's expenses. So let's say you can have a specific amount limit for the expenses. So if an expense, let's say if you consider meals, an entertainment expense. So if you want the limit to be 100 rupees for meals, so if the user creates a meal expense for 1000 or let's say more than 100, then in that case this violation will be automatically thrown to the user, saying that they have exceeded a particular limit, and it's a violation. So in certain cases, the users can also be blocked from submitting the expenses whenever they violate violate these rules. So these kind of automatic flagging of the policy violations makes it easier for the approvers to make swift decisions on whether these expenses need to be approved or rejected. So that can be done by the users. And yeah, so with the end-to-end expense reporting process, you can have approval workflows configured in any particular manner that you want. So you can have approval workflows which would exactly suit the company's current expense reporting process as of now. So if you want so let's say if you consider this case, when an employee submits an expense report, if it's greater than 5,000, then I can have the project manager approve it, and then it can come to the finance team for a second level approval. Or if it's less than 5,000, then I can make the employees manager approve it, and then make the finance team approve it finally. So this is a very simple example of how approval workflows can be configured. So likewise, you can have really complex approval workflows even met using Zoho Expenses end-to-end approval workflows. So yeah, so once the first level approver approves it, you can always have the last level approver as the finance team. So it's not that you can have only two levels of approval. You can have as many levels of approval workflows within the application itself. So let's say if you want three levels of managers to approve an expense report, and then finally as a fourth level, a finance team needs to approve the report or reimburse it. Yes, that can be done. So any levels of approval workflows you want, you can have, and based on that, the expense report will be automatically submitted to all of those approvers, and go to the final level approver. So that's how it works. So we would suggest you to set the finance team or the accountant to be the last level of approval. So that way the accountant or the finance team can finally review the expense report and then make the reimbursements. So, in terms of the reimbursements in Zoho Expense, our online reimbursements are powered by ICICI Bank. So, the client, if they have a corporate account with ICICI, or they can also create a new account for the organization. So once they do that, they'll be able to reimburse to their employees online, through the ICICI portal. So the end users need not have an account with ICICI. They can have accounts in different banks, but the organization account should be with ICICI Bank in order to initiate the online reimbursements. So that can be done, using our approval workflows process. So yeah, so that's how the application can meet the challenges that we just now spoke about earlier. Now, let me just dive deep into the application, and I'll show you how the application actually works and how it can work in terms of meeting all these requirements. So this is how the Zoho Expense application would work. So inside the application, once you log in, this is how it would look like. So the dashboard here, is that of an admin dashboard. So right now I'm logged in as an admin user within Zoho Expense. So as an admin user or an accountant, when you log into the application, this is the first dashboard that you would see. So you can quickly have a look at the spend summary of your expenses for that particular year, or if you would like to run it for a previous year or a previous quarter, you can definitely do that and find out, you can visually see where you're standing in terms of your expense report summary or spend summary, etc. So you can quickly have a look at all these details over here. So this would give you a comprehensive idea on where do you exactly stand, where the organization stands in terms of the spend summary or the report summary. So you don't have to separately run any reports within the application. So it can be seen within the dashboard itself visually. So on the other hand, from an end user's perspective, this is how the application would look like. So from an end user's side, once you log in, so you will have the option to upload your receipts into the application. So you can upload the receipts for auto scan either from your computer or from the cloud platform. So from the cloud platform, when when I say cloud platform, it can be uploaded from Google Drive or OneDrive or any other specific cloud platform that you're using. You can upload the receipts from there. So like I mentioned, once the receipts are uploaded, they will undergo the automatic scanning and then they'll be recorded as expenses. And this homepage will also show the users a recent summary of their reports. So whatever reports that they have recently created or the expenses they have recently created, they can quickly have a look at all those information from here. And yeah, so from the trips module, like I mentioned, it would be possible for them to basically create expense create trip requests from here. So when you click on the plus new trip over here, so this is how the trip request section would look like. So Zoho Expenses trip request module is created in such a way that it can suit. I mean, you can create both domestic and international travel requests within the application itself. So let's say if you're traveling to a different country, you can create a travel request for that. And if it's going to be a domestic travel, then you can have the domestic travel type chosen over here. So both of these can be created. And with a comprehensive trip itinerary section, it would be possible for you to add whatever itinerary that you want within the application. So apart from adding a one-way or a round trip process of flight itinerary, you can also add multi-city flight itineraries as well. So let's say if you're traveling from city A to city B, and then from there, if you're traveling to a different city, all for the same business purpose, then you can create all those itineraries under one single travel request. So you need not create multiple travel requests, for your flight bookings. All of these can be handled inside one single trip. And you can have the hotel itinerary set up, and for each of these itineraries you will have you can specify the details to the smallest levels. Like let's say when you add a flight a travel itinerary, you can specify the departure time, the flight preferences, what class do you want, what is your seating preference, or what is your your food preference or your meal preference. You can set up all of these within the application itself. The same way you can add it for other itineraries as well. So apart from the major hotel and flight itineraries, if you want to add itineraries such as the bus or the train or ferry, you can add those itineraries as well. So basically, once a trip request is created, it would look something like this, wherein you will have the trip request being created over here inside the application. And if you want to see the associated reports or the advances, you can have a look at them. So that's how your trip request will look like. So once you submit this trip request, it will be submitted for an approval workflow for a specific user. And once that particular approver approves this trip request, it means that the request has been approved by the team, and they can issue the tickets and then attach the tickets along with the trip request which they have approved. So that can be done. And within this application, we have actually designed the application in such a way that it can show both the pending activities from the user's end as well as the entire list of activities. So if you look at any of these modules that you see here on the left side, you will be able to see the pending section first. So if we go to the expenses section, you can see that unreported expenses, which means these expenses have not been added to any expense reports, or these have not been submitted yet. So these expenses will be shown on the left. And on the right side, if you click on the all expenses filter, you can have a look at all the expenses within the application over here. So that is how the expenses would look like. And once a receipt is attached, I mean, once you upload a receipt into the application, so like I mentioned, this is how it would look like, your expense. So if you try to edit the expense, so you can see the receipt information on the left side, and also the actual the expense details on the right side. So if you in certain cases, if the receipt that you uploaded has multiple line items, so if the same expense has more than one or two line items which belong to different accounts, then in that case you can itemize your expenses as well into multiple line items. So you can associate a different category for the second line item, specify what amount is it going to be, and then add it into the application. So that is also something which you will be able to do with the office supplies. With the when you upload the receipts into the application. And so apart from the traditional expenses that we just spoke about, so apart from the normal expenses which you upload through receipts or the ones that you create manually, we also have other type of expenses like the mileage expense or the per diem expenses, etc. So let me just come to them. And yeah, so before that, when you add expenses into the application, we also have options for you to associate the tax along with your expenses. So you can specify what type of tax is going to be associated based on the type of expenses, type of expense. So if it's going to be a domestic expense or import, you can specify what type of tax is it going to be. Is it a goods or a service tax? And then specify the GSTIN number, and then select the tax that you want. So that's how you can associate the GST with the with the expenses each employee creates. So they can choose the tax type and enter all the details. So like I mentioned, the application is completely GST compliant. So whatever taxes that you have as part of GST can be associated with the expenses a particular user creates. So that's about this one. And yeah, so apart from this, like I was saying, we also have other type of expenses like the mileage expenses. So if a company reimburses their employee for the number of miles or the number of kilometers a particular person travels, so in that case, the mileage expenses can be used to record, to get reimbursements. So you can choose a specific date, and as an organization, they can specify the amount or the rate per kilometer over here, and based on the distance that is entered, the total reimbursement or the expense amount will be calculated. Uh, this particular rate per kilometer is something which is defined by the company's norms or by the government's norms. So you can set the rate, and based on that, the users can get it claimed. And if you want different rates for different vehicles, so let's say if you want a different rate for two-wheelers, and or let's say if you want a different rate for four-wheelers, then you can specify the rate. You can choose what vehicle you use to travel, and based on the vehicle you choose, you can see that the rate per kilometer is automatically changing here. So that is how the mileage expenses can be recorded. And so on the web application, we only have the manual options of recording the mileage expense. But on the mobile application of Zoho Expense, we have options for you to record mileage expenses using the GPS on your phone. So all you need to do is you need to enable your GPS location on the phone, and you can just simply click on the start and stop button. So if you're starting from let's say one location, and you can click on the start from the mobile application, and once your ride is done, you can hit on the stop button, and based on the GPS, the number of kilometers you have traveled will be automatically tracked and recorded as an expense entry. And we have mobile applications in both Android and iOS platforms. So you can just simply search for Zoho Expense in the respective platforms application store, and you will find our application over there. So in both the versions, the GPS option is available for you to record the mileage expense inside the application. And with the bulk add per diem expense, expense option, you will be able, the users will be able to record, per diem expenses of, based on the location to which they've traveled to. So as an organization, the organization will be able to set rates based on different locations. So for every location, they can have a specific rate, and based on whatever rate, whatever country, whatever city or the country they select, the per diem amount will be calculated. So you can choose from which date to which date you travel to that particular location, and specify a particular time at which you traveled and then returned back. So you can specify this, and based on that, you can see that the per diem amount will be automatically calculated based on the number of hours you were a part of the business travel. So this is something which can be done. And if you have this can again be split based on the different types of expenses that you have. So a per diem expense can include meals, like the breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or incidentals, or lodging, or let's say laundry, etc. So you can include all these different types of expenses, and if you want, you can bifurcate the expenses as well. So that's something which can be done with the per diem type of expense. And there is also a bulk add expense section where the users can add up to 25 expenses in just one go. So you can just simply add multiple expenses in just one go, just like how you add it in an Excel sheet. So if you have the list of expenses and the information in your hand, just simply add them bulk or from here. And if you have cards connected with your application, so like I mentioned, if you have a corporate card connected with the application, then any expense that you incur through the corporate card will be automatically fetched into the application, and you can convert these transactions into expenses. So if you have a receipt that you have earlier uploaded, then the receipt can be automatically matched up with the transaction, or you can add it as an expense manually as well. So both of these can be done in this case. So ideal way is to what we would suggest is, once you incur the expense through the corporate card, we would suggest you to upload the receipt, and by the time the transaction hits the application, you can just simply match them up together. And this process of matching the transaction with the receipt can be automated as well. So if you want to if you want the transaction to be automatically matched up with the receipt, you can simply turn on an option in the settings, and any transaction that gets fetched in will be automatically matched up with the matching expense that satisfies the criteria. So the criteria will be the date, amount, and currency. So if those are the same between the transaction and the receipt, then they'll get matched up together. So that's how the matching can be done. And these are the different options that we have in terms of recording expenses inside the application. So like I mentioned earlier, once the expenses are recorded within Zoho Expense, the next process would be to basically submit these expenses for approval and then get it approved. So let me just go ahead and I already have created 2 sample expenses here. So let me just add them to a new report, and I'll show you how it look like. So let me just add it to a new report overall. So let's just say, so we have different options in terms of creating a report. So once your expense report is created within the application, this is how it would look like. So you can see the list of expenses which are included in the report, and if you got an advance from the company and you want to return it back, then you can add the advances that you've got from the company and associate it with this expense report. So for example, if you let's say I've got a 5,000 rupees advance from the company. So if I'm applying this 5,000 on my expense report, then it means that then the total reimbursable amount will be the expense report total minus the advance total. So it's going to be 350 minus 5,000. So that's going to be that's going to be the amount which the employee has to give back to the company. So that's how the advance will be calculated. So it will be considered as a refund which needs to be given by the employee back to the company. So that can be done using the advances section, and any changes that you have already done on your expense report. So if you've made any changes or anything related to the report, all those audit can be checked from the history section itself. So you can find that out. And if the expense report has any policy violations, you will see the policy violation on top of the expense report, like we saw earlier in the presentation. So let's say once you've added all the expense report and you're ready to go ahead and submit this for approval, you can just simply click on the submit button, which you see here on the top right, and this will automatically submit the expense report, based on whatever approval policy that is configured in the organization. So once you submit the report, so you can see that the report will be submitted. And in my case, I've just had an approval workflow wherein it needs to get automatically approved. So, as you can see here, the report just got automatically approved by the system itself. So in other cases, when the report is submitted, the approver user will receive a notification, and they will be able to go ahead and check the report which was submitted and then approve it. So for example, from the admin section, if you go to the reports section, so you will see the list of pending expense reports which are pending for approval. So if you see here, this is how your expense report will look like when it is submitted for approval. So you will be able to find all the details over here, what exact was uh, submitted by the user. And if you have any clarifications which you need to get from the user's end, you can always pass a simple comment over here and get it clarified from the user. So let's say something like, why is the receipt missing? So you can add a comment over here and send it to the user. So this will send out an email notification to the user, and they'll be able to reply back to you under this section itself. Or we have also brought in a chat option over here, which will allow you to chat with the users within your organization. So within your Zoho Expense organization, if you want to talk with an end user and get something clarified, you can just simply initiate a conversation from the chat section. So choose the user and send them a message directly, and they'll be able to reply back to you from there. The same way, if the end user has some clarifications while submitting an expense report, then they can also contact the approver or the finance team to get it clarified. So that's another thing which can be done. And if there are multiple expenses in a single expense report, then you can approve or reject one of those expenses. So if you feel that let's just say in a particular expense report, if you have multiple expenses and you feel that one of these expenses should be rejected, then you can reject it. Or you can reject the whole expense report as well by providing a reason for the rejection as well. So when you reject anything, you will have to specify a reason, and this reason will be conveyed to the user so that they'll be able to understand why exactly the report was rejected, and if required, they can resubmit the report as well. So if they have a genuine reason, they can resubmit the rejected expense report. So that can be definitely done from the user's end. And let's say once everything is completed and you want to go ahead and approve this expense report for approve this expense report, once you approve it, this expense report will be automatically approved, and you will be able to basically the a notification will be basically sent out to the user. So once it is approved, the report will look something like this, where you will see the approved symbol on the top over here, and notifications for this will be triggered to the end user saying that their report has been approved. So that's how this process would work. And along with Zoho Expense, if you have Zoho Books integrated, then in that case, all the expenses that you approve within your Zoho Expense will be automatically synced with your accounting software, that is Zoho Books. So if you go to Zoho Books, under the purchases expenses section, there is a dedicated filter called from Zoho Expense once you integrate expense and Zoho Books. So in that case, all the expenses which were approved within your Zoho Expense application will be automatically fetched into the Zoho Books application, along with all the details as well. So all the information that were added on the report or the expenses over there will be fetched in here. So including the report number and everything will be fetched in, the GST details of the taxes, everything will be fetched in over here inside your accounting solution. So that way you can, as an accounting person or an accountant, you need not worry about where the expense is standing, or you need not worry about the expense being accountable. So the expense will definitely get accountable if you have Zoho Books and Zoho Expense integrated. And just to let you know, by default, if you go for books and expense, Zoho Books and Zoho Expense are pre-integrated applications in the backend. So any change that you make in Zoho Expense will be reflected in Zoho Books. So basically all the chart of accounts which are of type expense will be fetched from books over to Zoho Expense. And same way any the projects or the customers that you add in books will be fetched into expense. So that way it makes it easier for you to manage everything in either in one of these two applications, and have them reflected in both the applications once they are approved. So that helps you in this way. And the expenses which get synced from expense to Zoho books will be synced in under the employee reimbursements account. So you will see the pay through as the employee reimbursements account. And when you actually make the reimbursement through your bank account, if you're making the reimbursement from Zoho books, and if you have the bank account linked under the banking module in books, then in that case the transactions from here can be matched up with the actual expense. So if you click on any one of these transactions, so you will have options to match them up with the transactions which were incurred during that particular period of time. So let's say if this is a reimbursement of 4,000 rupees, then during that same period, if you had a reimbursement or an expense report, then that can be automatically matched up with the transaction, and the reimbursement can be made that way. So you can do this, and by doing this, the reimbursement status will be automatically updated in Zoho Expense as well. So that's something which can be done with this reimbursement process. And yeah, so apart from this, apart from basically submitting these expense reports for approval, within Zoho Expense, we have recently introduced a new module. So we can record all the travel expenses using the modules that we just now spoke about. Now, in case you have a non-travel expense, so record. So for that, we have actually introduced the purchase request module within Zoho Expense. So this request module will allow the users to raise or get their expenses pre before they actually incur the expense. So there are cases where the employees would to buy gadgets for their organization, or they would need to buy furnitures for their organization. Or let's say, as a team manager, if I would like to take my team on a team lunch or team dinner, then I might need to get approval from my manager in order to do that. So all those pre-approvals for your expenses can be obtained using the purchase request module within Zoho Expense. So when you create the purchase request, you will be able to set the expected date on what date you're going to do, and you can set the item. You can choose the item name, and the category will be auto pop based on your preference. And you can also have a preferred vendor if you want, and set an estimate rate for that particular item, and then you will be able to get the get this request submitted. So once you save this purchase request, basically you will be asked to this purchase request for approval. So this will also undergo an approval workflow where your approver approves purchase request, and then only you can incur the actual expense. So once you submit it to a specific, so let's just say I'm gonna submit it to this person. So once I submit the purchase to that particular person, they would basically go through the purchase request which was submitted and then approve. So from the admin side, if you go to the purchase request module, you will be able to see all the submitted ones. So from here, you will be able to approve the purchase request which was submitted. Once you approve it, this particular purchase request can be associated with the expenses a user creates. So let's say whenever I go to create a new expense within the application, so from here you will be able to see that there's a specific section called as purchase, a field called as purchase request. So from here you will be able to choose all the approved purchase on your expenses. So once this gets approved, you can just simply select this particular purchase and then associate it with your expense report. And this way you can you can also inform the approver that this is the expense I incurred for that purchase request, and they'll to verify that from their end. So this is something which can be done using the purchase request module. And basically, apart from these options, we've also introduced a lot of customization options in terms of enforcing the rules or the policy to the users. So if you want to enforce violations of rules inside the organization, you can do it using policies within Zoho Expense. So using policies, what you can do is you can have uh, you can have limit rules configured based on different criteria. So if you want to have policies based on the designation of the user or the grade of the user, you can have policies like these, where you have one policy for grade 1 users and another policy for grade 2, etc. Or if you want the policies to be based on the department, so if you want all the users from HR department follow a particular policy, all the users from the IT team to follow a different policy. So you can have different policies based on the department also. So that can be done within the application. And when you click on when you go to create a policy, so you will have options to set the general rules like these. So you can have you can upload your travel policy document, or you can surcharge applied on the foreign currency expenses, and you can have category based limits as well. So you can define general limits first, wherein you can have a specific expense amount limit or a required limit. So I can have, let's say, a receipt required limit of 0. So whenever a user goes to an expense and it goes above 100, it will be considered as a violation. And in case a user creates expense which is above 0 rupees, and if the expense does not have a receipt attached, then it will be considered as a policy violation. So you can have these kind of limits configured for your and the same way, these limits can be configured for every category as well. So for travel expense, you can have a specific expense amount or a receipt required limit. And for meal expense, you can different receipt required or an expense amount limit. So you can completely customize the limits based on the categories over here. And the mileage rates can be configured here, like I mentioned. So your vehicle based rates. And for per diem, you can have you can specify hour based rate. So if the user travels only so many hours in a particular day, then only this much amount of per diem has to be provided to them. So that can be specified here, and that will be based on the travel location. So this can be done. And with the rules option in Zoho Expense, completely allow you to configure any types of rules that you want. So you can have daily, month, or yearly limits configured within the organization. So if you want a fixed amount limit, so for a specific, like let's say telephone expense. So if you want a daily limit of 100 rupees, you can have that. Or let's say this is going to be meal. So for meals and entertainment, you can have the amount of daily limit of 100 rupees. So if it crosses, it will be a violation. Or you can also have a monthly limit. So for monthly limit, if you want 500 rupees to be your telephone expense limit, something like that. So you can definitely have that as your limit over here. The same way you have a yearly limit configured, and so on and so forth. And it's not just a fixed amount limit. You can also have a limit based on expense counts. So certain organizations do not allow certain types of expenses like gifts or telephone expenses to be to not be claimed more than twice in a year or something like that. So if the organization provides one reimbursement per quarter, so you can have 4 expenses for telephone. So it's only the user can only create 4 expenses within the entire year for expenses. If they try to create above 4, then it will be a violation. And you can have mileage based limits as well. So if you want the user to travel only certain distance, or you can have a maximum limit, if you want to say, on the mileages, you can have that. So users can travel 5,000 kilometers every year. So that's going to be the maximum distance. So you can set that. And whatever type of limit that you set here, you can trigger an action type as well. So you can either warn the user based on the rule that you define, or you can block the user from seeing the expense report itself for approval. So if this violation happens, I do not user to submit that expense. Then you can block the user from entirely submitting that expense itself. So they'll be able to create it, but they'll not be able to submit it for approval. So that's how it can be done. And also have customized rules as well. So custom rules will allow you to define criteria rules as well. So right from having different types of criteria over here, you can inside the application itself. So you can have limits based on rules like this. So if you don't want the user to create an expense for a future, so let's say today's date is 10th of April. So if the user tries to create an expense for 3rd of April or 14th of April, then I should be able to block the user from creating that expense, because I don't want the user to do a fraudulent activity. So in that case, I can block the user from creating an expense for any future date. So for that, you can have a criteria defined over here based on the expense date, and then when it gets satisfied, the violation will be thrown to the user. And you can also have expense audit rules configured within the application. So using them, have different types of expense audit rules to be configured. So based on the severity of the audit, it will be highlighted to the user. You can see the risk level which is being shown on the expense report, which will be shown on the expense when you go to create your when you verify the user's expense reports. Based on the risk level, you can find out what kind of what kind of fraudulent users have gone through, or what mistakes the users have, or what is the risk level here in terms of audit purposes. You can quickly have a look at all of these while you verify the expense itself. So when you go to the reports section here, so from each and every expense, if it has policy violations, then you will be able to also find out the risk level as well. So the risk level over here based on the type of audit mistake the person has done. That's how this can be done. And apart from this, there are also a lot of other options available within the application. So like I said, the reimbursements will be powered by ICICI. So if you have online reimbursement integrated with Zoho Expense, then when you record reimbursement, the reimbursement will be processed from the ICICI bank account, company's ICICI bank account, to the user's bank account. That's how the bank transfer will happen from one bank to another bank. And from this, we have also provided almost 20 plus inbuilt analytics within the application, which you can use it for dashboards, the admin dashboard as well, which we saw earlier. So you can run any one of the reports that you see here under this section, or you can even mark some of it as your favorites, and these reports will quickly show you where exactly you stand. So if I want to run it for expenses by category, I can see the I can see the here over here. So let's say if I want to run it for the previous year, so I can run it and find out where exactly I stand, as an organization in terms of the spend summary, how much has been exactly spent. If in a particular category, then you will be shown with the list of expenses which were incurred during that particular year duration, the date duration. You can have a specific customized date duration, or you can different statuses applied, and you can have different information being different criteria being set up over here. So that's something how you can do with the analytics section. So any of these reports can be used at a point of time by the accountant or the admin to run reports within the application itself. So that's basically how Zoho Expense will work, within the application. I believe I tried to cover most of the options available. Now let me just get back to presentation. I'll cover a few more things before we wind up. So yeah. So apart from all the options just now saw, we will also be introducing the option to manage multiple branches with Zoho Expense itself. So using this option, you will be able to manage different branches under this organization. So you can have different GSTIN support as well. This particular option, so you can have multi GSTIN support, multi branch support basically. So inside the inside a single corporate office, if you have multiple branches, then for each branch you can have a user, you can have a set of employees, you can have the branch specific policies. So all of those can be configured within within each branch. So every branch, the branch admin will be able to manage the employees within that branch. They will be responsible for verifying or reviewing the expense reports or approving them, etc. So as if you're an accountant, you will have a visibility of all the expenses of the different branches under one single hood inside a Zoho Expense itself. So under one single Zoho Expense organization, able to have a look at the different branches expenses, and you can have all these expenses at your fingertips, and have them ready inside the application itself. So you will have that kind of comprehensive visibility of the different branches expenses under one single hood. And in terms of the integrations, right now, part of integrations, we are integrated with all these applications. So for travel, in India, we are integrated with Itlite, who's a corporate travel partner. So if you're already using Itlite, or if the organization is already using Itlite, then in that case, any booking which is made in Itlite will be automatically synced to Zoho Expense as an expense entry. If the organization wants to try out with Itlite, then we'll be more than happy to link you with Itlite, who will be able to help you have your travel booking setup, booking process setup. And once the travel booking is made, the expenses will be automatic with Zoho Expense. So that can be done. And apart from that, in terms of the ERP and the accounting solution, apart from Zoho Books, we are also integrated with all these applications that you see here. And any expenses which are recorded in Zoho Expense will be can be automatically synced in with these ERP solutions that you see here. And we also built in HR integrations as well in terms of people and CRM. So that's our options for integrations that we have. And yeah, so and apart from this, there are also a lot of utility options within the application available. So like the cloud options that we have, forwarding your receipts, or the email receipts forwarding, and for all these options, we will be able to use a lot of widgets within the application to perform various actions to automate your expense reporting process. And yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, we have mobile applications of Zoho Expense, and apart from the Android and iOS applications, we also have tab applications available in terms of iPads, the Android tablets. So you can download our Zoho Expense application and record the expenses or review expenses right from the mobile or your tabular applications itself. So you need not always use a web application. And since our application is completely cloud-based, you can either use the web application, or you can make use of our mobile or tab applications to record your expenses. We also have an Apple Watch, expense support available, in which you can record mileage expenses as well. So that's an option which is available. And so this is a review which we got from our a testimonial which we got from customers. So as you can see, it saved a lot of time in terms of when compared to competitors, and it saved a lot of time and energy in terms of integrating with various accounting solutions. And these are some of the branch trust Zoho Expense in terms of expense reporting. So some of our esteemed customers in India who use Zoho Expense currently. And yeah, so from this particular program, these are the benefits which a chartered accountant can get for which is this is something which is exclusive for BCAS. So the first few things are the ones that we just now saw in the presentation. So you have all the expense with the receipts from your clients without any delays. So you can have all the information at your fingertip without any delay. So there'll be no delay in terms of you getting the information, or you adding it to your accounting solution. And all the employee spend data at your fingertips. You can run analytic dashboards and reports and find out the information. You can bring the manual data entry counting almost to zero. So all the data flow from the expense application to your solution will be a free flow. And the most important thing is the expense will be free for free for you for 3 years for your firms. And sorry about that. So we have an MOU signed with ICAI. So according to this MOU, you can get the application for free for the first 3 years for your funds. So this will be applicable for Zoho Expense, Books, and Payroll. So you can check out the ICAI website to know more about this particular MOU and the offerings that are available. Yeah, so that brings me to the end of this particular session. So now I guess I'll be open for questions. If you have any questions, you can let me know and I'll be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Ramesh. I think, well, the chat window doesn't have any questions. But let's just wait for a couple of minutes.
Sure, sure, definitely.
Well, Ramesh, I don't think there are too many questions, so I think uh, this is good to conclude. Uh, in case you have participants, if you have anything, please
Yeah.
do post. We'll maybe hold on for a couple of minutes. But till then, thanks, Ramesh, for taking time out today, helping all of our participants, many of whom are chartered accountants or are also professionals or working with companies who will eventually need technology as a solution, right, to solve a lot of the operational challenges that organizations today will face. Obviously, with a lot
Correct.
of travel and various expenses we are incurring working remotely or working, from different locations. So I think, yeah, thank you, Ramesh.
Yes.
And I think if we'll wait for a
Yes.
couple of minutes, if there isn't anything, then we'll wrap up for the day.
Sure, 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 Rizwan.
I have
Yeah.
a raised hand.
Thank you so much for the audience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ekta, am I audible?
Yes,
Okay.
Vandana. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Ramesh, I wanted to ask you. First of all, it was a very nice presentation, and the new things which I learned today is that integration is very good. You are also giving Android as well as iOS, so all platforms taken care of. I was first question was that what would be the size of minimum size where you will be requiring this Zoho to be implemented? Matlab, there has to be one criteria. Okay, if you have so much person, minimum this persons, it will make workable propositions, to implement Zoho in that company. Basically, from the clientele's point of view, I was thinking where we can propose this kind of product. So is there minimum
Okay.
criteria based on say 20 users or 50 users? Then it will make break even kind of thing. Because is it a user based pricing or what I have heard, maybe how many users are logging, that way the Joho is priced, or a one complex complete package is given and then you are left over to choose how many users are logging in. So that's just
Okay.
my first question.
Okay. So, Vandana, thanks for the question. The pricing is completely based on the activity of the users. So we don't we wouldn't necessarily have a restriction on the number of users you can add within the application. So you can add as many as you want within the application, but then the client will be billed only for active users inside the application. So a user becomes active when they upload a receipt for auto scan or when they create an expense report. So when they do either one two operations in a month, then they become an active user for that particular month. So likewise, the active users within the organization will be calculated for every month, and then the pricing will be placed.
Okay, okay, that sounds good. So,
And we
is
also
there any
have
minimum
this.
billing
Yeah,
right?
we also have this. Yeah,
Minimum will be there, no? So this much minimum billing, then only
yeah.
you will be able to subscribe the product, like you know.
Yeah, so the minimum criteria will be three. So it starts from three users,
That's what I
and
was pointed to
from three
you.
users you can add as many users you want.
Yes.
Yeah,
So the way you said this is the
it
expense
starts from.
called M. In chartered accountant practice management software also you have worked. like CRM kind of thing for managing the chartered accountant practice, like how many hours I put on a particular client and then to bill, if you have an idea about that, probably.
Uh, yeah. So right now, I mean, in Zoho Expense, time tracking cannot be done because
Okay.
Expense is mainly an employee expense reporting tool.
Okay.
So time tracking of the users cannot be done in Expense. So probably you might have to look at Zoho CRM or maybe even Zoho Books with this option of
Okay.
adding timesheets.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is good. Na? So my request to BCA will be that the next lecture should be on Joe CRM or Joe book, so we get more acquainted with the products which are available and we can use it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anand.
Yeah, thanks, Vandan. I think we'll pass on the request that you also have to BCAS. So I think, yeah, Ramesh, that's it for the day. Thank you, and I think we can conclude the session.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thanks. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.